On a Tuesday night at the end of October, I was standing at the sink, scraping bits of flour from under my nails after a long day in the kitchen, when my phone started vibrating. My mom. I picked up. "Hello?" But she cut me off. "Emily, you need to be free on November 15th. "Don't embarrass me." I froze. She went on, excited, telling me my brother had secured a table at Meridian on opening night through his girlfriend, someone well-connected in the food world. Her voice rose with pride, like our family was about to step into something elite. Then she lowered her voice, as if reminding me, "Dress properly. And don't mention that little food blog of yours. Ryan is networking with important people." I looked at my reflection in the dark window. 6 years of building. 4 restaurants, over 200 employees. And in my mother's eyes, it was still just a little food blog. And the night she warned me not to embarrass the family was the same night my restaurant was opening. All week, my mom kept texting me about Meridian's opening night, like it was a life-changing opportunity for our family. She talked about Sophie, Ryan's girlfriend, how she was well-connected in the food world, how Harrison Blake once left an emoji under her post, how she had sent a fruit basket to his PR manager. There was so much pride in my mom's voice, like we were finally touching something big. I just listened, in silence, because Meridian wasn't a name I read in the news. It was a project Harrison and I had built for 18 months. He wasn't just an investor. He was the man who had opened 4 restaurants with me before. But in my family's eyes, I was still the daughter running a little food blog. And Ryan, he was the one with a real career. They were excited to step into my restaurant without ever once asking what I had been doing for 6 years. And that quiet ignorance, that was what made November 15th dangerous.
The problem was never that I hid my success from my family. The truth is, I tried to tell them. When I opened my first restaurant in Leslieville, I sent my mom a photo of the sign outside. She replied, "Okay, do your best." And right after that, a message about Ryan getting promoted. When I opened my second location, I invited the whole family to Vancouver for the launch. My mom said she was busy. Ryan said it was peak season at his law firm. When Toronto Life interviewed me, I sent the article to the family group chat. No one brought it up again. Not one question. Not one real congratulations. Slowly, I realized something painful. They weren't trying to hurt me. They just didn't believe my path was real. In my mother's world, success had a very specific shape. A lawyer on Bay Street, a banking partner, careers she understood and could proudly talk about with her friends. But cooking, restaurants, being a chef, it sounded like a hobby, something temporary. And when people decide you're on the wrong path, they stop asking where you're going. For 6 years, I built Owen Hospitality Group from a small kitchen into 4 restaurants with over 200 employees. I signed contracts, raised capital, negotiated leases, paid salaries. But in my family's eyes, I was still the younger sister working online. Creative, maybe, but unstable. That kind of dismissal isn't loud. It's quiet. It lingers. It slowly teaches you to stop explaining, to stop sharing. I chose silence, and they chose not to ask. That's how distance grows. If you've ever felt your dreams being quietly dismissed by your own family, type 1 below. Because sometimes the deepest pain doesn't come from harsh words, but from silence that lasts for years. My silence didn't start the night my mother said, "Don't mention that little blog." It started years earlier. After the 3rd time I tried to explain my work and got nothing but a distracted nod. I noticed something. Every time I talked about my restaurants, the menu, training staff, my mother's eyes would drift away. She would wait for me to finish, then switch to Ryan, a deal he just closed, a big client he was chasing. My stories were always shorter, lighter, less important. At first, I tried harder. I sent articles about me. I shared the moment a well-known food critic gave my restaurant 4 stars.
I talked about waking up at 4 a.m. to fix supplier mistakes. But over time, I understood a simple truth. When people don't believe in the value of a field, they don't have the patience to hear its details. And when they don't listen, they become even more convinced it doesn't matter. After my divorce at 26, I threw myself into work, not to escape pain, but to build a foundation. My family thought I was avoiding my feelings. I was actually building my life. I kept my ex-husband's last name for business, used Owen as my middle name to separate personal life and work, not to hide from my family, but to avoid hearing, "Are you sure? This industry is unstable." The distance between us didn't explode in one argument. It grew quietly, through dinners where I listened to Ryan talk, while my mother looked at him with open pride, through long drives back to Toronto alone, telling myself I didn't need their approval. I learned to celebrate myself, to comfort myself, to keep going on my own. Silence became protection. If I didn't share, I wouldn't face their doubt. If they didn't ask, I wouldn't have to explain. We both thought we were keeping the peace, but in reality, we were building a wall. The night before the opening, Harrison asked if I should tell my family. I hesitated, not because I was afraid they would know, but because I was afraid of the moment they would realize. That look, a mix of shock, regret, and wounded pride. I was afraid I would have to choose, comfort them or protect myself. 6 years of silence was never about hiding success. It was about getting used to being unseen. But as November 15th got closer, I realized something. Silence is also a form of complicity. I let them believe I was just doing this for fun, because it was easier than conflict. But what is the cost of avoiding conflict? A family sitting together excited about my restaurant as an opportunity for Ryan to network, without knowing I built it. That's not just misunderstanding. That's the result of years without real conversation. And I knew opening night would not just be a restaurant launch. It would be the moment everything that was ignored, dismissed, and pushed aside would finally be seen. The week before opening night, I barely left the restaurant. Mornings, checking kitchen design. Afternoons, meeting the service team. Evenings with Harrison, reviewing guest lists and media plans. Meridian wasn't just a new place. It was the biggest restaurant we had ever built, right on King Street West. High ceilings, exposed brick walls, a long bar reflecting warm, golden light. 6 years of small steps leading to this moment. The night before opening, I stood alone in the empty dining room. Tables set perfectly, wine glasses lined up in straight rows, napkins folded sharp. Outside, November wind swept dry leaves across the sidewalk. Harrison walked over, placing a hand on my shoulder. "Are you ready?" I smiled, but my palms were sweating. I wasn't just afraid the restaurant might fail. I was afraid of table 12. November 15th. I arrived at the kitchen at 5 a.m. Staff came in at 6. The smell of simmering stock filled the space. Knives against cutting boards, rhythmic. I moved from station to station, tasting sauces, adjusting plating, fixing details. Marcus, my sous chef, handed me a protein bar around noon. "Chef, you're breathing next to the arugula." I laughed. The pressure was settling in. 6 p.m. Doors opened. Guests poured in. Journalists, bloggers, restaurant owners. Voices blending with clinking glasses. From the kitchen, I watched each amuse-bouche leave the pass, each appetizer moving smoothly. My team worked like a machine. Everything exactly as planned. 6:30. Marcus leaned in. Table 12 just sat down. I didn't look at them, but I felt it. Something shifted inside my chest. My mother was probably taking photos of the breadbasket. Ryan was scanning the room for connections. Sophie posting stories. 7:15. Harrison came down from upstairs after interviews. Perfect suit, calm presence. He looked at me. "Let's go." We stepped into the main floor. Applause rose as guests recognized him. I stood beside him in my white chef's jacket, my name embroidered clearly, Chef Emily Owen. I tried not to look at table 12, but I did. My mother saw me first. Her smile froze. Her eyes moved from me to Harrison, then to the gold lettering on the wall. Meridian, a Harrison Blake and Emily Owen restaurant. The wine glass in her hand paused midair. Ryan turned to follow her gaze. His phone lit up. Sophie's eyes went wide. Harrison picked up the microphone. He spoke about the first time he met me, in a small bistro, about the Coco van that made him decide to partner with me. Then he said, "This restaurant is our shared dream. Please welcome my partner, Chef Emily Owen." Applause rose again, but the only sound I could hear was my heartbeat. In that moment, 6 years of silence finally ended.
We walked toward table 12, after greeting almost everyone in the room. I knew I couldn't avoid this moment. The longer I delayed it, the heavier it would become. Harrison remained calm, as always, but for me, every step felt loud against the floor. David stood up first. He reached out his hand, a gentle smile. "Congratulations, Chef Owen." The way he emphasized chef tightened my throat. I shook his hand, feeling a quiet support that had been there long before tonight. My mother was different. She stayed seated, looking at me like a stranger. "Emily, what is this?" Her voice shaky. "This is my restaurant, Mom. Harrison and I are partners." "But you have a blog." I took a breath. "I own 4 restaurants. Meridian is the 5th. I've been running Owen Hospitality Group for 6 years." Ryan had already searched on his phone. He looked up. Shock. Confusion. "You were on Forbes 30 Under 30? 4 years ago." Short. Simple. Sophie almost whispered, "You're Chef Emily Owen? I've been emailing you for an interview for 8 months." "I know." I stayed calm. My media team mentioned it. My mother put down her wine glass. Her hand trembled. "Why didn't you tell me?" That question made me laugh. Not because it was funny, because it hurt. "I did. Many times. You just didn't listen." The air shifted. Nearby tables went quiet. My mother's face flushed. Embarrassment. Defensiveness. "When did you tell me?" "When I opened my second restaurant, I invited everyone to Vancouver. You said you were busy." "When Toronto Life published my feature, I sent the link to the family group. No one replied." "Every time I talked about work, you changed the subject to Ryan." Ryan tightened his grip on his phone. Sophie stopped smiling. Harrison gently touched my back. A reminder, the restaurant was still running. He smiled politely. "We still have a few tables to greet. Please enjoy the evening. Tonight is our thank you." We walked away. Back into the kitchen, my hands finally started to shake. Marcus looked at me, full of questions. I shook my head. "Keep the service going." For the next 3 hours, I poured everything into the food. 217 covers, not a single plate sent back. Perfect on the surface. But inside, something had broken open. 6 years of silence, finally spoken. Not in a private argument, but under lights. Through applause. Through the name stitched on my chest. That night, I understood one thing. The truth, when revealed, can shock other people, but hiding it for too long is what really exhausts you. When the first reviews came out, everything became even clearer. Meridian raises Toronto's dining standard. Chef Emily Owen proves true excellence. My phone kept vibrating, but I didn't answer my mother's call right away. I needed a moment of silence. Around noon, I finally picked up. Her voice was different. No longer sharp, no longer loud. "Emily, I'm sorry." Just 4 words, but inside them, I could hear something collapse. Years of assumptions. That afternoon, I drove back to Oakville. No stage lights, no applause, just the familiar living room and 3 people waiting for me. My mother looked at me, eyes red. "I didn't understand anything," she said. "I thought you were just trying something temporary. I focused on Ryan because I understand law. But restaurants, I thought you would get tired of it." I wasn't angry anymore, just tired. "I don't need you to understand everything I do," I said quietly, "but I need you to believe that I'm serious about my life." Ryan spoke after a long silence. "Last night, I read everything about you. The company value, the interviews, the awards.
I never even asked what you do. I think I got used to you being in the background. That hit me deeper than I expected, not because it was cruel, but because it was true. David stood by the window, speaking slowly. We didn't just miss Emily's success. We missed her entire journey. And in that moment, I saw something shift. Not admiration for money, not pride for achievements, but shame for not listening. And for the first time in years, I no longer felt the need to prove anything.
I didn't want their apology to stop at emotion. I had heard enough "I'm proud of you" through tears. What I needed was real change. So I said it clearly, for the first time, without softening it. I don't need you to love food. I don't need you to understand how restaurants work, but I need respect. Stop calling my work a random blog. Stop treating it like a temporary hobby. The room fell silent. I knew I was setting a boundary, and boundaries always make people uncomfortable. But without them, everything would go back to the same. My mother nodded slowly. "I will learn," she said. "At least, learn how to ask." She looked at me, not with judgment, but with effort. "Tell me about Meridian. Why did you choose that style? Why this menu?" For the first time, I talked about my work without defending myself. I told her about combining local ingredients with French techniques, about creating a warm space in a noisy city. She listened, really listened. Ryan asked about investment structure, about expansion plans, not to compare, but to understand. Then I added one more thing. "If you want to come to the restaurant, I'm happy, but book a table like normal guests. I don't want family to show up just because it looks impressive now." My mother smiled softly. "I understand." And in that moment, I realized something. Growing up is not just building a career. It's having the courage to define how others treat you. And this time, I wasn't asking for respect anymore. I was setting the standard. The months that followed were not magic. There was no moment where everything suddenly became perfect. But there were small changes. Steady. Consistent. My mother made reservations at Meridian twice. She came with David. She didn't take photos to show her friends right away anymore. Instead, she asked me about seasonal ingredients, about why I changed the main dish for winter. Ryan came by one evening. He brought a bouquet, an apology. He sat at the bar, had a glass of wine, and talked about learning to listen more in his relationships. None of it erased 6 years of being overlooked, but it proved one thing. When people truly recognize their mistake, they can choose to act differently. Not because you became successful, but because they understand. If they don't change, they will lose you. I stood in the Meridian kitchen on a quiet Tuesday afternoon, watching my team prepare for a dinner service. Marcus was showing a new staff member how to cut meat against the grain. Upstairs, Harrison was meeting investors for our 6th location. My phone vibrated. A message from my mother. "Dinner on Sunday? I want to hear about your expansion plans." I smiled. "I'll be there." There's something I've learned through all of this. Success doesn't need recognition to exist. It's still yours, whether people see it or not. But respect is different. It requires both sides to move toward each other. My family was wrong for not asking, and I was wrong for staying silent too long. Now, I don't wait for permission to succeed. I just live the life I chose. And if they want to walk beside me, the door is open. But I will never shrink my dreams again to fit someone else's expectations.